It was a cold, damp evening in the small town of Riversville. The sky was dark and the air carried a biting chill that made people hurry home to their warm houses. Mayor Richard Thompson, however, had always enjoyed taking long walks along the Sci-Fi riverbank after work. It gave him time to think, to reflect on the day's events, and to connect with the quiet beauty of nature. Tonight, though, something felt different. There was an unusual stillness in the air, broken only by the soft rustling of leaves and the distant hum of crickets. As he approached the old stone bridge that spanned the narrow creek, Mayor Thompson slowed his pace. He could hear faint sounds coming from beneath the bridge, muffled voices, the occasional giggle, and what sounded like the clinking of metal against glass. At first he thought it might be teenagers hanging out late, but curiosity got the better of him. Stepping closer, he peered into the shadows under the bridge, his eyes adjusting to the dim light. What he saw stopped him in his tracks. Huddled together on the cold, hard ground were children, 5 of them, maybe 6. They were wrapped in tattered blankets, their faces smudged with dirt, and they looked no older than 10 or 11. One boy was holding a flashlight, its weak beam illuminating a pile of scraps they seemed to be sharing as food. Another child, a little girl, clutched a stuffed animal tightly to her chest, even though half of its fur was missing. Despite their ragged appearance, there was laughter among them, a fragile, fleeting kind of joy that broke the mayor's heart. Mayor Thompson stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do. How could this happen? In his town. These kids didn't belong here, living like stray animals under a bridge. He took a deep breath and stepped forward, his footsteps crunching softly on the gravel. The children froze instantly, their laughter dying away as they turned to look at him. Their wide eyes were filled with fear, suspicion, and a flicker of hope, all swirling together in a way that made the mayor's chest ache. "Hello?" he said gently, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "I'm Richard. I'm the mayor of this town." The children exchanged nervous glances, and one of them, a boy who looked about 9 or 10, stood up slowly. His clothes were patched and torn, and his shoes were so worn that holes had formed in the soles. Clutching a makeshift toy car made out of twisted wire, he stepped cautiously toward the mayor. "Are you here to hurt us?" the boy asked, his voice trembling slightly. The mayor shook his head firmly, kneeling down to meet the child's gaze. "No," he replied, his tone steady and reassuring. "I'm here because I want to help." For a moment, nobody moved. Then, the boy lowered his guard just a fraction. "We don't have anywhere else to go," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "They said we couldn't stay at the shelter anymore. We've been here for weeks." The mayor felt a lump rise in his throat. He had heard rumors about overcrowded shelters and funding cuts, but he never imagined things had gotten this bad. These kids weren't troublemakers or runaways. They were survivors, doing whatever they could to stay alive. "What's your name?" the mayor asked, trying to keep his voice calm and friendly. "Jacob," the boy replied. "Well, Jacob, you're not alone anymore," the mayor said. "I promise you we'll figure something out. You and your friends deserve better than this." Jacob nodded hesitantly, and the other children began to relax a little. A younger girl crawled over to the mayor, holding out a piece of bread that was almost too stale to eat. "Do you want some?" she offered shyly. The mayor smiled, touched by her gesture. "Thank you, sweetheart, but I'm fine. Let's get you all somewhere warm, okay?" He stayed with them for nearly an hour, talking to each child and learning their names. There was Lily, a 6-year-old with big brown eyes and a tattered teddy bear. Marcus, a quiet 8-year-old who rarely spoke, and Sarah, a 10-year-old girl who acted like a mother to the younger ones. Each of them had a story etched into their faces, stories of hardship, loss, and resilience. When the mayor finally left the bridge that night, his mind was racing. He couldn't unsee what he had witnessed. These kids weren't just statistics or headlines. They were real people, with dreams and fears and hopes for the future. And they needed someone to fight for them. Back at home, the mayor sat in his study, staring at the wall as the clock ticked past midnight. He knew he couldn't ignore what he had seen. Tomorrow he would call an emergency meeting with his advisors. He would rally the town, beg for donations, and find a way to give these children the care and attention they deserved. But tonight, all he could think about were those tiny faces under the bridge, their eyes filled with both fear and hope. Mayor Thompson had spent years working to improve Riversville, but nothing had prepared him for this. This wasn't just about fixing roads or balancing budgets anymore. This was about saving lives. And as he drifted off to sleep, one thought kept echoing in his mind. These are our kids. If we can't protect them, then what's the point of anything else we do? Little did he know, this discovery would change not only the lives of those children but also the entire town, and perhaps even himself, forever. The next morning, Mayor Richard Thompson woke up early, his mind still heavy with thoughts of the children under the bridge. He hadn't slept well, tossing and turning as images of their tired faces replayed in his head. By sunrise, he was all ready, dressed and pacing around his kitchen, sipping a cup of coffee that had gone cold. Today wasn't going to be like any other day. He had made up his mind about that. This was no longer just a problem. It was a responsibility. These children needed help, and he was determined to make sure they got it. At exactly 8 a.m., the EJU, Mayor called an emergency meeting at the town hall. His advisors, council members, and key staff gathered quickly, curious about why they had been summoned on such short notice. The room buzzed with whispers as everyone took their seats. When the mayor walked in, his expression was serious, almost grim. Without wasting time, he stood at the front of the room and began to speak. "Last night," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "I discovered something I can't ignore. Under the old stone bridge near the riverbank, there are children, homeless children, living in unimaginable conditions. They have no food, no shelter, and no one looking out for them. We talk about making Riversville a better place, but how can we claim that when this is happening right under our noses?" The room fell silent. Some people looked shocked, others uncomfortable, and a few seemed skeptical. One council member raised her hand cautiously. "Mr. Mayor," she began, "are you sure this isn't just a temporary situation? Maybe these kids belong to families who will come back for them." The mayor shook his head firmly. "No, they don't. I spoke to them last night. Their stories, they're heartbreaking. Some of them have been abandoned by parents struggling with addiction. Others lost their homes because of poverty or tragedy. Whatever the reason, they're alone now, and it's our job to step in." Another man leaned forward, frowning. "But helping them won't be easy. Housing, food, medical care, it's expensive. Where will the money come from? And what happens if more kids show up once word gets out?" These were valid concerns, and the mayor knew it. But instead of backing down, he responded with quiet determination. "Yes, it'll cost money. Yes, it'll take effort. But tell me, who else is going to do it? If not us, then who? These children are part of Riversville. They're our responsibility. We can't turn our backs on them." His words hung in the air, and slowly the mood in the room shifted. People started nodding, murmuring in agreement. Someone suggested reaching out to local businesses for donations. Another proposed using social media to spread awareness and gather volunteers. Ideas began flowing, and soon the group was brainstorming solutions. By the end of the meeting, a rough plan had taken shape. First, they would set up temporary shelter at the town hall itself. Unused offices could be converted into sleeping quarters, and blankets, pillows, and basic supplies could be collected from donations. Second, they would contact local restaurants and grocery stores to provide meals. Third, they would reach out to schools, churches, and community organizations to enlist volunteers who could assist with childcare, tutoring, and emotional support. But the mayor didn't stop there. As soon as the meeting ended, he picked up the phone and started making calls. He reached out to Mrs. Harper, a retired teacher known for her kindness and generosity. "Mrs. Harper," he said when she answered, "I need your help. There are children in this town who need someone to guide them, to teach them, to give them hope. Will you join us?" Without hesitation, Mrs. Harper agreed. "Of course, Mayor Thompson, just tell me where to go." Encouraged by her enthusiasm, The mayor continued calling others, business owners, doctors, counselors, and even ordinary citizens who might be willing to lend a hand. To his surprise, most people responded positively. Word spread quickly through Riversville, and within hours, volunteers began showing up at the town hall with boxes of clothes, bags of groceries, and offers to help however they could. Meanwhile, the mayor returned to the bridge that evening to check on the children. True to his promise, he brought warm blankets, fresh bread, bottled water, and a few toys he had scrounged from his own attic. When the kids saw him approaching, their eyes lit up, not with fear this time, but with cautious excitement. "You came back," Jacob exclaimed, running over to greet him. "Of course I did," the mayor replied with a smile. "I told you I'd help, didn't I?" He explained his plan to them, telling them about the temporary shelter at the town hall and assuring them that they wouldn't have to sleep under the bridge anymore. At first, some of the children hesitated, unsure whether to trust him. But when he promised to stay with them until they felt safe, their resistance melted away. That night marked the beginning of a massive effort to transform the town hall into a haven for the children. Volunteers worked tirelessly, cleaning rooms, setting up beds, and organizing supplies. By morning, the building looked almost unrecognizable. What had once been dull, unused offices were now bright and welcoming spaces filled with laughter and chatter. As the days passed, more children arrived, not just from under the bridge, but from other parts of Riversville too. Each new arrival brought its own challenges, but also reminders of why this work mattered. Every child had a story, every face a reason to keep going. One afternoon, while supervising the setup of a makeshift classroom, the mayor noticed a young girl sitting quietly in a corner. She was clutching a tattered teddy bear and staring at the floor, her eyes red from crying. He knelt beside her and gently asked, "What's wrong, sweetheart?" She sniffled and whispered, "I miss my mommy." Her words hit him like a punch to the gut. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. Then he reached out and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "I know it hurts," he said softly, "and I can't replace your mommy, but I promise you, you're not alone anymore. We're here for you. All of us." The girl nodded tearfully, and though she didn't smile right away, she leaned into his touch, a small gesture of trust that meant the world to him. Despite the challenges, progress was undeniable. The town hall buzzed with activity, and the children gradually began to feel safe. They laughed during playtime, devoured meals with gusto, and eagerly participated in art projects organized by Mrs. Harper. Slowly but surely, they were starting to heal. Yet the mayor knew this was only the beginning. Temporary shelter and food were essential, but they weren't enough. These children needed stability, education, and above all, love. They needed families, people who would open their hearts and homes to them permanently. Late one night, as the mayor sat alone in his office reviewing notes from the past week, he realized something important. This wasn't just about saving a group of homeless kids. It was about proving that Riversville was more than just a town. It was a community, a family. And if they could pull together to help these children, maybe they could inspire others to do the same. With renewed determination, he jotted down ideas for the next phase of his plan, finding forever homes for the kids. It wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to face whatever came next. After all, these children deserved nothing less than the best, and he was determined to give it to them. As he turned off the lights and locked up the town hall for the night, the mayor allowed himself a small smile. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, he let himself feel proud. Proud of what they had accomplished so far, and hopeful for what lay ahead. The weeks that followed were some of the most challenging yet rewarding of Mayor Richard Thompson's life. The town hall had become a bustling hub of activity, filled with the sounds of laughter, chatter, and even occasional tears. It was far from perfect. The makeshift beds weren't as comfortable as real ones, and the donated clothes sometimes didn't fit quite right. But it was a start. For the first time in months, maybe even years, these children had a roof over their heads, warm meals in their stomachs, and adults who cared about them. But the mayor knew that providing shelter wasn't enough. These kids needed more than just food and a place to sleep. They needed trust. Many of them had been hurt before, by parents who abandoned them, by strangers who ignored them, or by systems that failed them. Convincing them that Riversville was different wouldn't happen overnight. It would take patience, consistency, and genuine care. Every day, the mayor spent hours interacting with the children. He joined them during meals, played games with them in the common area, and listened intently whenever they wanted to talk. At first, many of them were hesitant to open up. Some clung to their belongings like lifelines, afraid someone might take them away. Others avoided eye contact altogether, burying themselves in books or toys to avoid conversation. One boy, named Marcus, stood out. He was 8 years old but rarely spoke. His dark eyes darted around nervously, always watching, always wary. When the mayor tried to engage him in conversation, Marcus would either mumble one-word answers or retreat into silence. Yet despite his guarded demeanor, there was something about him, a quiet strength, that intrigued the mayor. Determined to break through, the mayor decided to approach Marcus on his own terms. Instead of bombarding him with questions, he simply sat nearby, reading a book or sketching pictures. Over time, Marcus began to inch closer, curiosity getting the better of him. One afternoon, while the mayor was drawing a clumsy picture of a bird, Marcus finally spoke. "That doesn't look like a bird," he said bluntly, pointing at the scribbled lines. The mayor chuckled. "You're right. I'm not much of an artist. Want to show me how it's done?" Marcus hesitated for a moment, then grabbed a piece of paper and started sketching. Within minutes, he had created a detailed drawing of a sparrow perched on a branch. The mayor was impressed. "Wow, that's amazing. You've got real talent." A faint smile flickered across Marcus's face, and for the first time, the mayor saw a glimpse of the boy behind the walls. From that day on, art became their shared language. They drew together often, creating colorful scenes of birds, trees, and sunsets. Slowly but surely, Marcus began to relax, sharing bits and pieces of his story between sketches. He talked about his father, who used to draw with him before disappearing one day without explanation. He mentioned his mother, who worked long hours and often forgot to pick him up from school. And he revealed how lonely he had felt until now. Building trust with each child required a unique approach. For Lily, the 6-year-old girl with the tattered teddy bear, it meant spending extra time listening to her dreams. She loved talking about becoming an artist someday, filling notebooks with doodles of castles, princesses, and magical creatures. The mayor encouraged her creativity, organizing art supplies for all the kids so they could express themselves freely. Watching Lily's face light up as she painted vibrant rainbows brought a sense of fulfillment the mayor hadn't felt in years. Then there was Sarah, the 10-year-old who acted like a mother to the younger ones. She carried herself with a maturity beyond her years, always making sure everyone was fed, dressed, and comforted. But beneath her strong exterior lay deep scars. One evening, after putting the younger kids to bed, Sarah approached the mayor, with tears streaming down her face. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm tired, so tired." The mayor knelt down beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "You don't have to carry everything by yourself," he said gently. "That's why we're here, to help you, to share the load." Sarah buried her face in his shoulder and sobbed, releasing emotions she had kept bottled up for too long. When she finally calmed down, she admitted that she had been taking care of her siblings since her mom fell ill. After her mom passed away, she did her best to keep them together, but eventually they were separated when social services intervened. She hadn't seen her siblings in months. Hearing her story broke the mayor's heart, but it also gave him clarity. These children weren't just looking for temporary fixes, they were searching for family. Not just any family, but people who would love them unconditionally, no matter what. To address this need, the mayor launched a series of bonding activities designed to strengthen connections between the kids and their caregivers. Every Saturday morning, they held group outings to parks, museums, and libraries. Volunteers organized storytelling sessions, science experiments, and craft workshops. Mrs. Harper, the retired teacher, taught lessons in reading, writing, and math, turning the makeshift classroom into a lively learning environment. These activities served another purpose as well. They helped the children form relationships with potential foster families. The mayor had invited several interested residents to participate in the outings, giving them opportunities to interact with the kids. Naturally, some matches clicked immediately, like when a kind-hearted baker named Mr. Peterson bonded with Jacob over their shared love of model cars. Others took longer, requiring multiple meetings and conversations. One particularly memorable outing involved a trip to the local zoo. The children were thrilled, running from exhibit to exhibit with wide-eyed wonder. Lily couldn't stop talking about the giraffes, while Marcus sketched every animal they saw. During lunch, Sarah struck up a conversation with a middle-aged couple named the Carters, who had recently lost their teenage son in a car accident. By the end of the day, both parties were smiling warmly, exchanging phone numbers and promising to stay in touch. As the weeks turned into months, the atmosphere at the town hall transformed. What had once been a place of uncertainty and fear became a home filled with laughter and hope. The children began to see themselves not as victims of circumstance, but as valued members of a community that truly cared. Yet challenges remained. Some children struggled to adjust, lashing out in anger or retreating into isolation. Others resisted forming attachments, fearing they would be abandoned again. The mayor reminded himself daily that healing was a process, one that couldn't be rushed. Patience, empathy, and consistency were key. Late one night, as the mayor reviewed progress reports in his office, he reflected on how far they had come. These kids weren't just surviving anymore, they were thriving. Their resilience inspired him, reminding him of the incredible strength humans possess when given a chance to shine. Still, he knew the journey wasn't over. Temporary shelter and emotional support were important steps, but they weren't the final destination. These children needed permanent homes, families who would commit to loving them for the rest of their lives. Finding those families wouldn't be easy, but the mayor refused to give up. He owed it to these kids to see this through to the end. Renewed determination, he jotted down ideas for the next phase of his plan, launching a campaign to find forever homes for every child. It would require creativity, persistence, and teamwork, but if anyone could make it happen, it was Riversville. Together, they had already proven that miracles were possible. As he turned off the lights and headed home, the mayor allowed himself a small smile. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new reasons to believe. And for now, that was enough. By the time winter rolled around, Riversville had transformed in ways no one could have imagined just a few months earlier. The town hall, once a quiet government building, now buzzed with life. Children laughed in the halls, volunteers cooked, meals in the kitchen, and teachers led lessons in makeshift classrooms. But Mayor Richard Thompson knew that this arrangement, as heartwarming as it was, couldn't last forever. These kids needed more than temporary shelter. They needed stability, belonging, and love. They needed families. The mayor called a special meeting with his team to discuss the next step, finding permanent homes for the children. He stood at the front of the room, his expression serious but hopeful. "We've done an incredible job. So far," he began, addressing the group. "But we can't stop here. These kids deserve forever homes, places where they'll feel safe, loved, and part of a family. It's time to make that happen." The room fell silent as everyone processed his words. One advisor raised her hand hesitantly. "Mayor Thompson, I agree that adoption is the ultimate goal, but it's not going to be easy. Many people are hesitant to foster or adopt because of the emotional and financial commitment involved. How do we convince them?" The mayor nodded thoughtfully. "You're right, it won't be easy. But if we frame this as an opportunity to change lives, including their own, I believe people will respond. We need to show them that these kids aren't burdens. They're gifts waiting to be cherished." With that idea in mind, the mayor launched a campaign called Open Hearts, Open Homes. Posters went up all over town, featuring photos of smiling children alongside heartfelt messages like, "Every child deserves a family, and love grows when you open your home." Social media played a big role too, with videos showcasing the kids' talents and personalities being shared widely. Local newspapers ran stories about the efforts underway, highlighting both the challenges and triumphs of the project. To further encourage participation, the mayor organized open houses at the town hall. These events gave potential foster parents and adoptive families a chance to meet the children in a relaxed setting. Tables were set up with crafts, games, and snacks, creating a festive atmosphere. Volunteers helped facilitate conversations, ensuring that interactions felt natural rather than forced. The first open house was nerve-wracking for everyone involved. The children dressed in their best clothes, some clutching stuffed animals or toys for comfort. They were excited but also anxious, unsure of what to expect. Would anyone want them? Would they be rejected again? As visitors arrived, the mayor greeted each person warmly, sharing stories about the resilience and potential of the children. He spoke passionately about how fostering or adopting wasn't just about giving a child a home. It was about gaining a new member of your family, who would bring joy, laughter, and endless possibilities into your life. One couple, the Carters, stood out during that first event. Middle-aged and kind-hearted, they had recently lost their teenage son and were struggling to find meaning in their grief. When they met Sarah, the 10-year-old girl who acted like a mother to the younger kids, something clicked. They bonded over shared experiences of loss and resilience, and by the end of the day, they exchanged contact information, promising to stay in touch. Another success story emerged when Lily, the 6-year-old aspiring artist, captured the heart of Mrs. Harper, the retired teacher. Mrs. Harper had been volunteering at the town hall since the beginning, teaching art classes and helping the kids express themselves creatively. She had grown particularly fond of Lily, whose imagination seemed boundless. During the open house, Lily proudly showed off her latest masterpiece, a colorful painting of a castle surrounded by flowers, and Mrs. Harper couldn't resist. "I think she's found her forever mom," the mayor whispered to a volunteer nearby, smiling. Despite these successes, not every match happened quickly or easily. Some families came forward only to back out later, overwhelmed by doubts or logistical concerns. Others took weeks or even months to build enough trust with the children before committing. The process was slow and sometimes frustrating, but the mayor refused to give up. He reminded himself daily that every child deserved a loving home, no matter how long it took to find one. To support the transition, the mayor implemented a mentorship program. Each child was paired with a trusted adult from the community, a teacher, a counselor, or a volunteer, who could provide guidance and encouragement throughout the adoption process. These mentors became advocates for the kids, attending meetings, with prospective families, answering questions and offering reassurance when nerves ran high. Jacob, the boy who had first approached the mayor under the bridge, proved to be a challenge. Despite his outgoing personality, he struggled to trust adults, fearing they might leave him like others had before. Mr. Peterson, the baker who shared Jacob's love of model cars, spent months building a relationship with him. Every Saturday, they worked on car models together, talking about everything from school to superheroes. Slowly but surely, Jacob began to let his guard down, realizing that Mr. Peterson wasn't going anywhere. One evening, after completing a particularly intricate model, Jacob looked up at Mr. Peterson and said, "Do you think I could live with you someday?" Tears welled up in Mr. Peterson's eyes as he nodded. "I'd like that very much, Jacob, very much." Each success brought renewed energy to the campaign. Word spread beyond Riversville, inspiring neighboring towns to launch similar initiatives. Donations poured in from across the region, funding everything from counseling services to transportation for visits between kids and potential families. Local businesses offered discounts to foster and adoptive families, easing the financial burden. Churches and community groups hosted fundraisers, raising thousands of dollars to support the effort. As more children found homes, the mood at the town hall shifted. While there was still sadness in saying goodbye, there was also immense pride and joy. The mayor often found himself tearing up during farewell parties, watching as kids hugged their new parents tightly, clutching teddy bears or backpacks filled with cherished belongings. These weren't just adoptions, they were miracles, born out of compassion and determination. By spring, nearly all the children had been placed with families. The transformation in Riversville was remarkable. Neighbors who once kept to themselves now gathered regularly to support one another. Schools reported improved attendance and grades among the formerly homeless kids. Even the economy seemed to thrive, fueled by a renewed sense of community spirit. For Mayor Thompson, this experience changed everything. He had entered politics to make a difference, but he never imagined it would lead him to become a father figure to dozens of children. His actions inspired other towns to follow suit, creating similar programs for vulnerable youth. Yet the mayor knew their work wasn't finished. There would always be more children in need, more families to connect, and more hearts to heal. But, for now, he allowed himself a moment of gratitude. Riversville had proven that love and kindness could overcome even the toughest challenges, and as long as people cared enough to try, there was hope for a brighter future, for everyone. This fourth part highlights the journey of finding forever homes for the children, emphasizing the emotional connections formed and the broader impact on the community. Let me know if you'd like any adjustments. The years passed quickly, and Riversville continued to grow and thrive. What had once been a small, sleepy town was now buzzing with life, a testament to the power of compassion and community. Mayor Richard Thompson's efforts to rescue and rehome the children under the bridge had sparked something extraordinary. Not only had those kids found forever families, but the entire town had been transformed in the process. It wasn't just about saving lives anymore. It was about creating a legacy of love that would endure for generations. Every year, on the anniversary of the night Mayor Thompson discovered the children under the bridge, he organized a reunion at the town hall. The event had become a cherished tradition, drawing former shelter residents, foster parents, adoptive families, and volunteers from all over the region. For one day, the old building was filled with laughter, hugs, and memories, as everyone came together to celebrate how far they had come. This year was no different. As the sun rose over Riversville, volunteers arrived early to decorate the space with colorful balloons, streamers, and handmade signs that read, "Welcome Home," and "Forever Family." Tables were set up with snacks, drinks, and photo albums documenting the journey, from the grim days under the bridge to the joyful moments of adoption ceremonies. In the center of the room stood a large canvas painted by Lily, now a successful illustrator, depicting the bridge surrounded by stars and smiling faces. By mid-morning, the town hall was alive with activity. Former residents trickled in, some bringing their own children in tow. Jacob, now a confident teenager, walked in arm in arm with Mr. Peterson, his adoptive father. He wore a leather jacket covered in patches from his favorite bands, and his once timid demeanor had given way to a bold, adventurous spirit. Spotting the mayor across the room, Jacob grinned and hurried over. "Mayor Thompson," he exclaimed, pulling him into a tight hug. "Look at me. I'm taller than you now." The mayor laughed, patting him on the back. "I see that. And look, at this jacket. Are you trying to be a rock star?" Jacob shrugged playfully. "Maybe someday. But first, I'm going to finish school and get my mechanic's license. Mr. Peterson says I've got a knack for fixing things." Nearby, Sarah stood chatting with the Carters, her adoptive parents. Gone was the weary girl who had carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. Now she radiated confidence, her eyes bright with dreams of becoming a nurse. She introduced the Carters to her fiancé, a kind-hearted young man named Ethan, and proudly showed off the engagement ring on her finger. "I can't believe it," Mrs. Carter said, wiping away tears. "She's grown into such an amazing woman. We're so proud of her." Lily, meanwhile, was busy showing off her artwork to anyone who would listen. Her paintings had gained recognition not just locally but nationally, and she often spoke at schools and community events about overcoming adversity through creativity. When she spotted the mayor, she rushed over, clutching a rolled-up canvas. "Mayor Thompson, I made this for you," she said, holding it out shyly. It's the bridge where we met, but I added stars and flowers because that's what you gave us, hope." The mayor unrolled the painting carefully, his breath catching in his throat. The scene was breathtaking. A vibrant depiction of the bridge bathed in golden light, surrounded by blooming flowers and twinkling stars. At the bottom, Lily had written in neat cursive, "Thank you for believing in us." Tears welled up in the mayor's eyes as he pulled her into a hug. "Lily, this is incredible. You've always had such talent and such a big heart. Thank you for reminding me why we did all of this." As the day went on, stories poured in from every corner of the room. Marcus, the quiet boy who used to sketch birds, was now studying art at a prestigious university. He had brought along a portfolio of his latest work, stunning landscapes and portraits that left everyone in awe. "Drawing saved me," he admitted softly. "And so did you, Mayor Thompson. If you hadn't sat with me that day, I don't know where I'd be." Even the youngest attendees, children born into the newly formed families, seemed to understand the significance of the gathering. They ran around laughing, playing games, and marveling at the older kids' accomplishments. Watching them, the mayor felt a surge of gratitude. These were the next generation, growing up in a town that valued kindness, resilience, and unity. Later in the afternoon, the mayor took the stage to address the crowd. The room fell silent as he looked out at the sea of familiar faces, faces that had once been marked by fear and uncertainty, but were now glowing with happiness and hope. "When I found those children under the bridge all those years ago," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "I didn't know what the future held. All I knew was that we couldn't turn our backs on them. What happened next was nothing short of miraculous. This town came together in ways I never imagined possible. Businesses donated supplies. Volunteers gave their time and energy. Families opened their hearts and homes. Together we proved that love has the power to transform lives." He paused, glancing around the room. "But let's not forget, the real heroes here are these kids. They taught us what it means to persevere, to dream, and to trust again. They reminded us that even in the darkest moments, there's always light if we're willing to look for it." The audience erupted into applause, many wiping away tears. When the clapping subsided, Lily stepped forward, holding her painting. "We wanted to say thank you to all of you for everything you've done. Because of you, we have families, dreams, and futures we never thought were possible." Her words echoed through the room, leaving not a dry eye in sight. The mayor smiled, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. This wasn't just a celebration of what they had achieved. It was a reminder of what was still possible. There would always be more children in need, more challenges to face, and more opportunities to make a difference. But Riversville had shown the world that when people worked together, anything was achievable. After the speeches, the festivities continued late into the evening. Families shared meals, exchanged stories, and danced to music played by a local band. Kids chased each other around the room, their laughter filling the air. Even the Carters joined in, swaying to the rhythm as Sarah spun in circles, her dress twirling like a flower in bloom. When the event finally wound down, the mayor stood outside the town hall, watching as cars drove away and families headed home. The sky was dark now, dotted with stars that seemed to shine brighter than usual. He felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that the seeds they had planted years ago had grown into something beautiful. As he turned to lock up the building, he noticed a small note taped to the door. Picking it up, he recognized Lily's handwriting immediately. "Dear Mayor Thompson, thank you for giving us a second chance. Because of you, we'll never forget where we came from, or how far we've come. Love, Lily, and everyone." The mayor smiled, tucking the note into his pocket. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new reasons to keep fighting for a better world. But tonight, he allowed himself to feel proud. Proud of what they had accomplished, and hopeful for what lay ahead. In that moment, Mayor Richard Thompson knew his work had only just begun, and he wouldn't have it any other way.